What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another match preview stream for the massive game tomorrow night, 8 o'clock kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The return of Pochettino, Tottenham against Chelsea, which has become a much bigger game since yesterday with that Arsenal result, them losing 1-0 to Newcastle. Spurs have the opportunity after 11 games to go 5 points clear of Arsenal. Do you reckon that's any sort of significance to that this early in the season?
It's definitely nice, that's for sure. I don't know if it's look, after 11 games, 5 points can be wiped out very quickly. I don't think it's massively significant. As I said, last season Arsenal were topped by 8 points. Well, with 8 games to go, and they still managed to capitulate. So 5 points at this stage, especially given that Arsenal have some good games coming up, and we've got some hard fixtures after this game, or even this game as well. No guarantee we beat Chelsea. We're in a middle of a hard run of fixtures, so I don't think it's massively significant, but it's definitely nice, and it's definitely look, after 11 games, 5 points clear of Arsenal would definitely be I think it would represent basically the change of last season as to how much we've improved, and maybe Arsenal not being the same standard as last season. I think that would represent that, but I don't think it'd be massively significant in terms of do we think just because we're 5 points clear now that means we're definitely going to finish above them? I don't think so.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I think like when you're looking at before the season coming into it, and maybe what the Arsenal fans were saying about their club and their ambitions and what our ambitions were going into the season, to be 5 points clear of them, very impressive, isn't it?
Well, they say their floor is our ceiling or something like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
All this rubbish.
All this crap that they come out with. And it's like, I think it just shows like the progress in such a short space of time that we've made under Ange Postecoglou.
And considering that Arsenal, albeit they've had actually like results-wise a pretty good start to the season, I feel, even though they maybe performance-wise haven't been fantastic. If I think they've won, out of 11 games, they've won 7, have they? Or 7 out of their 11 games?
They've lost 1 and drawn 3, I think. 2 or 3.
That was their first loss. So, yeah, they've drawn 3. So the fact that they've actually had a pretty decent start, albeit maybe not as good as last season, but then we could be sitting here 5 points clear of them, would be very impressive.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, like we mentioned just a second ago, there were 2 unbeaten teams in the league. That is now 1. Spurs are the only remaining unbeaten side in the Premier League so far this season. But we are one of the only teams to have not played that 11th game. And that 11th game comes tomorrow night at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs against Chelsea. Let's look at the form of the two clubs. Chelsea, I mean, obviously they've had a terrible start to the season, 12th in the league so far, very up and down. I thought they were getting things together, and then they did have that loss against Brentford at Stamford Bridge. How do you assess Chelsea coming into this?
Obviously, there's been a lot of change this season. Again, the third time already that Bowley has kind of ripped up the plan and the squad and gone for something completely new. This project seems something that a lot of people are saying they can see what he's trying to do, what they're trying to buy into. A lot of young players put in a manager like Pochettino who knows how to coach young players, and surely that's gonna should be the recipe for success. But as we're seeing, it's going to take a lot of time, because at the moment they're just not it's not clicking properly. Even when they're winning, I don't think they're looking massively impressive. I just think they're like they've beaten Burnley, they've beaten Fulham recently. 2 good wins, but I think a lot of teams couldn't beat them when they come up against quality. Even against teams like Arsenal and Liverpool, where they played well, still didn't get the win on the board, and still had periods in their game where they weren't on top, albeit they'll feel like they're unlucky not to get those wins. I think Chelsea are looking very energetic, but I feel like they still haven't ironed out exactly how to work out Pochettino's system for 90 minutes, how to sustain it. And they're having problems, especially with the high intensity pressing that Poch likes to give his teams. They're doing it for certain periods, but I think it's very similar to when Spurs started doing it. They could do it for certain times, but they couldn't do it for 90 minutes, which really suffocates opponents. And I think they're really struggling with that. Second halves at the moment, they're struggling to sustain that intensity and that pressure, and it's leaving them coming unstuck. And especially when you throw in the fact that they're not being clinical when they do get the chances. That Sterling Jackson are being very guilty of missing big chances when presented to them. And without those chances being put away, it leaves the opposition with basically confidence that they know if they can take their chance, that Chelsea right now aren't very clinical, and you can hold them out for the second half. So I think that's causing a lot of problems for Chelsea right now. And I think they got good players. They're a young team. It's going to take time and patience. But right now, they're just leading to a lot of inconsistencies. And you're going to get that when you've got so many young players in the team without that
especially
experience.
so many new players as well, new young players. I mean, you almost have to, every year at Chelsea, have to get used to new surroundings and new teammates every year. And it seems like, for me, it does seem a little bit like they are better than what they're showing right now, and they are better than what their results suggest, in my opinion. I think that first half of games, they are actually playing really well, and I'm seeing a team that could be coming together. And I think that with their second halves, I just don't think they're used to the way that they're playing just yet. And I think that will come over time. I really do. And I think that they've got some quality players there, some really quality players. I'm liking the look of their midfield. I like the look of their defense. It's just that, for me, like they just need a proper clinical finisher up there, and I think a lot of things will change.
I think as well, when they're coming up, I think when they're kind of in the first half and it's 0-0 and it's kind of an even game, their pressing can get them lots of chances when their intensity is high, and I think we're seeing that. And in the first half, they're getting lots of chances. But what I'm also seeing is either when they're behind or when the second half starts, when the opposition has settled into the game and they're in a low block, in a bit of a low block, or even a mid block, and restricting Chelsea that space. I do see a team struggling to create chances against settled defences. I think when they're able to press and create chances in that way, unless Enzo's picking a lock, I don't see too much creativity. That's a problem I'm also seeing. So I don't think it's just I think
Cole Palmer has helped that though in recent weeks.
He has. I'm saying that in second halves when they're coming up against settled defences, they are struggling to create these chances. So I don't think it's I don't think it's just as simple at the moment as just put a finisher there and it'll solve all their problems. I still think there are other problems right now when it comes to creating chances for Chelsea. But I do think all these things will come in time because I do think they've got good players. But right now, I think they're playing well, especially in first halves, but I don't think at the moment it's as simple as if you just have someone who puts the ball in the back of the net, because I think there are a few other problems as well, creatively and as well defensively. I think they actually conceded is actually pretty good, but they seem to lose concentration when they do miss a few chances, and that seems to be a consistent theme as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree against that, to be honest. But if you look at the head-to-head between the two clubs, historically, obviously, Spurs don't have it all their own way against Chelsea, and that's putting it lightly. We've just come out of a bad rut against Chelsea last season, where we were actually unbeaten last season against Chelsea, drawing 2-2 in the early stage. That seems like 20 years ago, that game now, with Conte in charge and Tuchel in charge of Chelsea, when Harry Kane scored in the last minute. And then you cast your mind back to February last year when we beat them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the very first time, with Ollie Skip getting on the score sheet. I do think it's going to be a completely different game to that game, don't you think?
Definitely. Both teams have changed a lot since then. Spurs were actually under Stellini in that game as well. And obviously Ollie Skip, I think, put Spurs ahead, and we ended up winning the game 2-0. It was a game where Spurs weren't great in that period, which is Chelsea were even worse, and that was as simple as that. It wasn't a great game of football, but Spurs are completely changed from then. We're going to be playing a completely different system, and so are Chelsea. So I don't think that game has any. Even the squads are going to be very different. I'm assuming the first 11. So I don't think that game has any bearing on what's going to happen on Monday night.
And if you look at the two players we've picked out for one to watch, we've got Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer. I thought Raheem Sterling started the season unbelievably well. He looked like a player reinvigorated. I think he's a player that Poch has liked for many years as well. He only scored 3 goals this season in 10 appearances. I think that he's, like you mentioned before, he has missed a lot of gilt-edged chances this season, and probably should have seen more numbers, to be honest. And Cole Palmer as well was that 2 goals, 1 assist. Has he got 2 goals for Chelsea already?
2 goals, I think, both of them penalties, I think.
Right. But he's a player that been massively impressed with since joining Chelsea. 45 million. A lot of people kind of raise their eyebrows at that price for a player that hasn't played too many Premier League games, but I think he's going to be a star from what I've seen so far.
He's playing very well, and he's still only, I think, 19 or 20, isn't he? And he's come to the Chelsea team, and he's been one of their brightest sparks so far since he's come into the team, and he's showing real quality right now. I think he shows a bit more when he's centrally than when he's on the right. I think when he's on the right, I still think he's good, but I don't think when it comes to being a winger, I don't know if he has that dribbling ability that you need in the modern game to really be as effective as you can be in that position. But I feel like when he's centrally, when he's got passing options towards him and even space to shoot, that's when he's at his most effective and when he's at his most creative, and that's where I've been most impressed by him this season. So I think he's definitely been a massive bright spot for Chelsea. And when it comes to Sterling, I think he started the season well, but I do think it's definitely the spark's gone in the last few weeks for him. It doesn't seem to be as effective as he was in the first few weeks. And even in the first few weeks, he was doing a lot of good stuff. But apart from maybe the Luton game where he scored a brace, he just wasn't being able to match that up with goals and assists that maybe his performances deserved. And that would be frustrating for him. And that's always been something that maybe people have criticised Sterling for, especially since he's moved to Chelsea. So I think he's obviously, when it comes to his pace, he's the bigger danger man. But Cole Palmer's been really, really impressive for Chelsea so far this season when he's been given the opportunity. So I think he's also, for sure, a future England star. I don't know. I think this season he's been very good. Do I think come the end of the season we're going to be sitting back and thinking he's got like 10 goals and 10 assists? I don't think he'll be that good yet. I think he's going to be showing a lot of quality, but I think it's still going to be maybe next season before he starts becoming a real goal contribution like every single week kind of player.
I mean, for me, it looks as though like everything that Chelsea are doing good is going through Cole Palmer at the moment. And I've been, like I said before, super impressed with what I've seen so far. If you bring up this predicted lineup for Chelsea, Sanchez in goal, which actually I think is an area that we need to target this weekend with his, suspect playing out the back at times. You've seen how many times Spurs have pressured from the front and won the ball back high up the pitch from dodgy kicking out the back or maybe some poor defensive passes. And if Roberto Sanchez's passing is anything to go by with what we've seen over the past few weeks, it's definitely something we should be targeting on Monday night. But James is probably going to be coming back in at right back. Colwill left back probably with Silva and Disasi in the middle. Enzo Caicedo as the double pivot with Palmer, Gallagher, Sterling supporting Nicholas Jackson. I mean, in terms of the players I really rate, they do have a lot of good players in that team. When you're looking at Reece James, Levi Colwill, Thiago Silva, I'm not 100% sure on Disasi yet. Caicedo and Enzo are two top players in my opinion. Gallagher has been performing really well with Cole Palmer and Raheem Sterling, obviously good players. Nicholas Jackson is a funny one because in pre-season he looked like a regen of Thierry Henry and now he just can't hit a barn door. I mean, it seems like he's got all the attributes to be like a top striker in the Premier League apart from having any sort of composure. He just has no composure whatsoever.
He's a young player, and that's what happens with young players. They need to refine their game. And I'm sure he looks like physically, he seems very capable. When it comes to hold-up play, he seems quite good as well. But when as soon as it gets to the time to bury a finish or take a chance, he seems to be lacking that at the moment. He's a very young striker. Sometimes you need that confidence. So I'm sure it'll come for him. But he's clearly very capable physically, especially for his age. So I think he's definitely one to watch if he does start or even in the future for Chelsea. But again, it's about giving these kind of players time at the moment. But then again, I've seen other players for Chelsea where you could definitely say the same thing, and then they never get that finishing. Like Werner, I thought he was very similar. He got himself loads of chances, extremely quick. Like he seemed like all he was missing was that finish. And we kept saying as soon as he learns to finish, he's going to be a top player, and it just never happened. Yeah. So he has to do it, but that is something. Obviously, the glaring flaw in his game right now is when he gets to the final third. Because I don't think he can say he doesn't get the chances, can he?
No, that's definitely true. That's definitely true because he gets a lot of chances throughout the whole season, and I was actually so worried looking at him in pre-season because he looked like the real deal in pre-season, didn't he? And then suddenly the season started, and maybe he's just showing his youth and inexperience and lack of composure, because that's definitely hurting Chelsea at the moment. But in terms of where Spurs are going to find some joy in this game, I'm looking at how Chelsea are playing. I'm looking at those first halves and maybe the way that we start games sometimes. And I do see a lot of worries there that could potentially come in that first half. Do you think it's a case of literally just trying to keep them at bay for the first half and then go kill them in that second half?
I don't think so. I don't think that's what we'll try to do. I can see that being the case. I don't think that'll be the plan, just to contain them first half, then hit them in the second half. I think we're going to try and play our game from minute one, and we're going to try and dominate the ball. We're going to try and play through their press confidently and see if we can get joy, going and force them back the other way. Knowing how Chelsea have played so far this season, I'm just thinking about the Man United game at home. I'm thinking about the Arsenal game away. Even in certain cases, the Liverpool game in the early exchanges, I do remember some struggles against teams who are pressing us really aggressively and really high, especially in first halves. And considering that, I do envisage Chelsea getting a bit of joy from us early in the game if we're not on top of our game, if we're maybe feeling our way into the game and we're not playing through the press as well as we can. Maybe Chelsea could get some joy with their aggressive press early in the game, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to manage, and we're going to have to make sure either they miss those chances, or we're going to have to make sure that we're restricting them of any chances on the overturns, which they have been creating so far. But they've definitely been very energetic in first halves, and that's something we're going to have to plan for and be very wary of going into this game. But I do think if we can play through their press, there's going to be space for us. So if we're really sharp at the beginning of the game and we're able to do what we know we can do on the ball in our own half, especially if I'm trying to think of whether we should have the fullbacks inverted like we usually do at the start of games, or are we going to try and plan for how they press and maybe put one fullback a bit wider, or even both fullbacks a bit wider, just to try and stretch the play and give them more cover to ground to cover while they're pressing? Because if you have two inverted fullbacks and they're pressing intensely, it almost becomes easier for them to press because they have less ground to cover if they're all centrally. And so you kind of need to get them to stretch the play a bit off the ball. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's where we've struggled a bit sometimes against high pressing teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how Pochettino kind of plans for how Chelsea are going to really be intense. But we know if we can play through their press, or if they miss a few chances, either their pressing gets less intense, or we can start finding solutions to how they are pressing and we start to play through them. And that's what we've seen as well from the Arsenal games and the Man United games. We've found solutions in those games to deal with their press. And I can envisage, even if Chelsea are getting some joy early on, doesn't mean we're not going to find solutions as the game goes on.
Are you worried about the left-back situation coming into this game? Destiny and Davis, both massive doubts. Looks like probably both of them, neither are going to play. Emerson probably going to fill in at left-back. Is that a worry for you?
It's not great. Obviously, Udogie, because what Udogie's done so great is it's not just, he's so physical, so he gets into the final third with ease at the moment. He's picking up those. He's also an offensive-minded fullback, so he's picking up very much offensive positions when it comes to the final third. But one of those crucial things is his ball retention. When you give him the ball with a couple of players on him, he's able to hold them off, and he not only hold them off, but actually beat them and drive into the space. Davis can't do that, and I don't think Emerson can do that as well. So we definitely do lose an element when Udogie's not on the pitch, 100%. Is it something I'm generally worried about when it comes to the result, getting a result? I don't think we at the end of the game we can say, well, we missed Udogie and Emerson was playing, that's why we didn't get the result. If you can't get a result even without Udogie, I think that's more of an issue to the planning on the game or how you've played rather than just one player missing. So I'm not I don't think it's going to cost us a result, but it's definitely going to make it harder to get one for sure because of how good Udogie is. But Emerson, physically, we know he's very good. Defensively, he's very good. I think in a way, it could even make us more solid defensively having Emerson there.
I think he's very hit and miss at left back, though. Like sometimes he can perform well there. Sometimes it's just a disaster class. So hopefully it's the former rather than the latter.
For me, I think it's more about on the ball. I'm not expecting too much from him on the ball because he's always having to cut inside. Even when he's not cutting inside, I don't think he's very good just defensively. We know that. Like, he's very good when he keeps things simple and he just keeps the ball retention. When you ask him to do what Udogie does, like bursting into space, creating chances, getting shots on goal, even getting cutbacks, things like that, that's not his game, Emerson. He's not going to be very good at that. So when it comes to offensively, I do think we definitely will lose something on that side. But when it comes to defensively, I'm not too worried about him being a liability there, to be honest.
And obviously we got to talk about the situation with Bissouma and Caicedo, both of them coming from Brighton. Caicedo going for crazy money this summer, Bissouma going for a fraction of that price. And we were coming into this season being like, we saw the first few performances of Bissouma this season, and we were like, well, if Caicedo is going for that money, how much is Bissouma worth in this current market? And are we going to see in this game why we think Bissouma is so much better than Caicedo?
I hope so. I think Caicedo's definitely had a mixed start to his career at Chelsea. Definitely the first few games were tough to watch. He was really off the pace. But to be fair to him, since he's gotten more used to Pochettino and, you know, more ingrained in the system and in the team, he's become better, but I'm still got big question marks about on the ball at the moment, because on the ball he's looking a bit all at sea, a bit lost. I think off the ball he started definitely improving. He's getting a lot better defensively, but he's struggling a bit, I feel, when it comes to his incisive passing. He's been very, very sloppy, especially when he's been pressed and when he's been hounded by the opposition. He's been losing it very easily. So that's definitely something to envisage. Whereas Bissouma's been very different. I think he's been class most of the season, albeit maybe last couple of games maybe not as good as he has been at the start of the season. But I do think like Bissouma's definitely been a better all round. He's been unbelievable off the ball. He's been incredible with his dribbling ability and his passing ability on the ball as well. I think his passing accuracy, 95% passing accuracy so far this season. I think he's near the top of the league when it comes to midfielders who are taking people on and successful dribbles. Caicedo's still finding his feet, I feel. So far, but then again, he's a lot younger. He's 21 years of age, so he's got time on his side. Bissouma's 26. He's a bit more of an experienced midfielder in the Premier League. He's a lot more had a lot more game time in the Premier League, so he's a lot more experienced at this level. So I'm expecting Bissouma to show his authority on the pitch, dominate him a bit, and hopefully bully him a bit, but Caicedo is a very good player in his own right. He's got very good physical qualities. He could run all day and all night. It's just about whether we can force him into mistakes, and whether when he tries to force Bissouma into mistakes, Bissouma can show that composure he's been showing all season, because I haven't seen that composure from Caicedo so far.
The front three in this game, probably going to be Sonny up top, Kulusevski on the right, and on the left, I do think it's going to be Brennan Johnson. If that is the front three, are we going to see more fluid actions in that front three? Because last few games, there has been a bit of an issue with that. I know we've still been winning games and everything like that, and rightly so, we've been winning games. But does that worry you at all, this front three at the moment? Are they fluid enough for your liking?
I don't think individually they worry me. It's more just how they're clicking as a team at the moment. I don't think they've got the kind of consistent patterns of play as fluid as they would like in that front three. I don't think it's an individual thing. I don't think it's Richarlison's fault. I don't think it's Kulusevski or Son's fault. I just think that's the hardest bit to get right, isn't it? When you're coaching this kind of team, to get these free flowing football moves consistently, and I think the fact that we've even done it a few times during games, like the second goal against Palace, like there have been times during the game where we get those moves going. It looks really, really amazing to watch, and even there are times where we get them going where maybe we don't even take full advantage of it, like a few times against Fulham. Kulusevski had a couple of chances where he was on the end of a couple of really good free-flowing moves. So I think the moves are there. They're not there consistently enough, but I would say, which is the biggest problem. But I don't think it's a case of if you put this player in and you take this player out, it's going to really improve that massively. I think maybe it can improve it a bit, and maybe it can change the dynamic. And when you change the dynamic of the front three, that can maybe give different options. But I just think they need time to get it going. It's only 11 games in. And the fact that I think you can see the elements of it there, it's just not there consistently in the moment. So I don't think putting Johnson for Richarlison is going to drastically change how the front three are playing. I think he's going to give us more options when it comes running in behind and taking people on, more direct play. So it will change the dynamic of the front three, and maybe it will give us a bit more joy when it comes to how many chances we're getting against Chelsea. But when it comes to like free-flowing moves and the fluidity of that front three, do I see it massively changing just putting Johnson in for Richarlison? I don't. But I do see it maybe improving a bit. I'm not massively worried about it. I just think it's a thing that takes time.
Yeah. And another situation, probably the last one we'll talk about today, is the big one, which is Pochettino returning to Tottenham Hotspur for the first time since his sacking. He's made it very clear his feelings about the club and about his situation. Obviously, he is at Chelsea now, so he is the enemy. What kind of reception would you like to see him get, and what kind of reception do you think he will get?
I think for me, considering it's his first game back at Tottenham ever since he's been sacked 5 years ago, and considering as well that he wanted to come back to Spurs. Spurs didn't. If people call him a snake, I don't understand, because he wanted to come back to Spurs. We didn't want him, and at the end of the day, he's got a football career. He's got a career to go through. So he can't just be sitting around waiting for Tottenham or waiting for other jobs. He's got to assess the jobs at the time he's offered them. Yeah. And at the moment, at that time, he had Chelsea. No one else was offering him jobs. He wanted Spurs. We didn't offer him a job. So he took the Chelsea job. For me, I don't like Chelsea, obviously. They're obviously rivals. For me, they're not as big as rivals as Arsenal. I don't consider that rivalry as big. So my hate for Chelsea isn't as strong as maybe some other people. Maybe some other people feel differently. I would like to see him get a nice reception when he comes out for the first time. When the game starts, I don't really care. What people want to say to him, or we want to make the atmosphere as intense as possible, of course. We want it to be an intense atmosphere, and we want Chelsea to feel uncomfortable. I just think Pochettino, for the work he did at Tottenham, I'm still very appreciative of it. Clearly, he still has feelings for Tottenham as well. He's been made that very clear in his press conference. I would like to see a bit of a moment of appreciation for the game, and because it's his first time back at Tottenham, and then whatever happens after that happens. And even when he comes back next year, if he's still in a job, I don't care what kind of reception he gets. You can boo him, whatever. I would just like, because it's his first time back at Tottenham, ever since he got sacked, just a bit of an acknowledgement of the job he did, and that's that. What I think will happen, I think it'll be a bit of mixed. I think it'll be some people, I reckon, to be honest, I think it'll be more appreciative than it will be booing, in my opinion. But I do think it'll be mixed. I do think there'll be audible boos. I do think there'll be a lot of people applauding him as well. I don't think it'll be one or the other. I just think it'll be a very mixed reaction. But from what I can gather on social media, what I'm looking at, it seems as though there seems to be more people who want to give him appreciation rather than booing him. But there definitely does seem to be two sides to the argument. Yeah,
I mean, social media very rarely relays back into like real life, though, does it?
No.
I kind of feel like whenever you see like these things, we're definitely going to do this, we're going to, it always something completely different in the stands.
I think in these kind of scenarios, when they've propped up, more often than not, Spurs fans would be more appreciative than booing, I think.
I don't think it's ever propped up like.
But this is different. This is
completely different.
Let's put a poll. Maybe we should put a poll. See what the
yeah, sure. Thing. If you want to, can you put up a poll? Will you boo or cheer Pochettino? Or maybe boo, cheer, or just
what
silent.
do you want, I guess? Because not everyone's going to be there, but what would you want? I want to know what the fans in the comments are saying on the matter. What do they reckon should happen?
But like the words that he's saying very much will resonate with Spurs fans, because like if you're a Chelsea fan listening to what Pochettino is saying, surely you can't be anything but like have a bit of disgust with what he's saying.
I mean, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of the comments, because we had a preview of Louis, a lot of the comments are saying we're taking Pochettino's comments out of context when it comes to what he said. But I don't know if we are, because I personally, if I'm looking at it through the lens, if I'm looking through the comments out of the out of a Chelsea fan's lens, obviously I'm not a Chelsea fan, I don't think I can have too much to complain about with what Pochettino said, except for one thing, which is he said he's happy to see Tottenham top of the league and he's happy to see what a great job Postecoglou is doing. Now, if I'm a Chelsea fan, considering Spurs are their number one rivals, that's got to be something to grind your teeth about a bit and not be happy about, because if you're a Chelsea fan, you don't want to hear your manager saying, "I'm happy to see Chelsea top of the Tottenham top of the league," because
that's the same as our manager saying that about Arsenal.
You're supposed to be wanting to be above them. You're supposed to be wanting to be in that position, and unless you're there above your rival, you shouldn't be happy with where you are. And even if you're like wanting to rebuild and you're wanting a process, all that kind of stuff, you can still never be happy until you're above your rivals, right? That should always be the goal, and you should never be looking at the table thinking, "Oh, I'm so happy they're top of the league." That should never be a situation. Even if you're happy with the progress your team is doing, you shouldn't be happy to see a rival be above you. So if you're a Chelsea fan, I can understand that. I don't think anything else he said, even though he's saying, he had a great time at Tottenham, all that kind of stuff. I think if he's asked directly about, his relationship with Tottenham, all that kind of thing, I don't think they could be too unhappy with that. He's just being honest with the situation. But I think now you're manager of Chelsea, you can't be going around saying, "I'm happy to see Tottenham top of the league." I think that has got to be, for me, as a Chelsea fan, maybe that puts doubt in your mind whether he's fully bought into, being a Chelsea manager, or fully, because remember the most crucial thing we said when he was Tottenham manager is he fully got what it meant to be Tottenham manager, and he really bought into the club.
Doesn't seem like he knows what it means to be Chelsea manager.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If he's saying that about Tottenham, has he fully bought into what it means to be Chelsea manager? That's a big question mark when he's saying things like that. 100%. So that's what I've got to say.
Do you reckon he's looking at Tottenham now and the job that Postecoglou's doing and being like, "Oh, that should have been me"?
Maybe part of him. I think some of the stuff he's saying, like, he never got the call from Tottenham, and he said, what did he say? I remember he said something like, which was in his embargoed section, which I was reading last night. He said, maybe if I didn't get sacked.
I've got that quote right here.
Yeah, what did he say? What was the actual quote?
They asked him about if they think he's going to get a frosty reception like Declan Rice did at West Ham the other night. And the quote is, "I'm going to accept whatever they'll show. The only difference is I didn't decide to leave. We parted ways because I was sacked. It's not a criticism of the club, but that is the difference. We didn't decide to leave, and maybe we would even still be there now."
See, that's the thing. That quote right at the end, saying maybe I would still be there now if I didn't get sacked. That tells me like part of his mind is still there. Yeah, I don't think he's fully moved on from it. It feels like from the job, because if he's saying like maybe I would still be there if I didn't get sacked. That shows to me like he still feels like he didn't need to get sacked at that time, and he still had a great relationship with the club and everything, and he would still like to be there, kind of thing, because the way he says it makes me feel like, because if he knew that the things had to end at that point, he wouldn't be saying that. If he knew like the relationship had broken at that point and that it was the right time for the club to split, to go their separate ways, he wouldn't be saying maybe I'd still be there. He would have acknowledged like, look, I did a great job. It was time to move on. It's time to move on to the next thing. But the fact he's still saying, maybe I'd still be there if I hadn't got sacked, that tells me a part of him still feels like he should have been given the time to turn it around, and he could still be Tottenham manager if that sacking hadn't taken place. And maybe he's saying, by saying that, it was the wrong decision to sack him, kind of thing, and he could still be Tottenham manager.
And I think we all know it was the wrong decision to sack him at the time.
We know, but it shows he hasn't fully moved on from it in a way.
And I think if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be deeply kind of concerned about these comments coming out. Your manager right now is essentially a Tottenham fan. That's what he is. And it's like, wow, like if I was Poch right now, I wouldn't be saying any of these things. And if you're asked about Tottenham, I would say, yeah, had a good time at the club, but I'm Chelsea manager now and I'm focusing on Chelsea. Like, I wouldn't talk about any of the stuff that he's saying right now. And I feel like it shouldn't sit right with Chelsea fans, the things that he's saying.
Like, I'm just imagine if Conte, while Conte was a manager, or Mourinho, if he was asked about when he came, if like, let's say Chelsea were top of the league when they played, and he said like, oh, Chelsea's my old club and I'm so happy to see them top of the league.
Conte, didn't he say like, I had a great time at Chelsea and I still love the club or something.
I don't care about that. But honestly, that kind of thing I wouldn't have cared about. But if he in a press conference, he said before the game, "Oh, it's so good to see Chelsea top of the league. Like I'm so happy for them." Yeah. I'd be like, come on, why are you saying that? I wouldn't be happy with that. And if he said like, maybe if Chelsea didn't sack me, I'd still be their manager, that would tell me like part of him is still there.
So he's still twerking for the Spurs job.
I'm not saying
he's Chelsea manager.
I don't know if he's twerking for the Spurs job, but clearly in his mind, like he hasn't got over it. I don't think, and I think those quotes clearly say that. For me,
agree. I completely agree. But back to the original point, like what reception do I personally think he's going to get, or what do I want to see him get at the ground? I want to see us make it as intimidating as possible, to be honest. And I think sentiments need to go completely out the window when a game like Spurs-Chelsea, Spurs-Arsenal, a big derby comes around, especially as big as this one. I know it's early in the season, but I think it's quite significant at this stage of a season to go 5 points clear of Arsenal. And the old Spurs probably would have just lost in a game like this. So I want to see us go there. I want to make it an intimidating atmosphere. I want to see Poch. I don't want to see him get abused because there's a part of me that still loves the guy, but whilst he's Chelsea manager, I can't love him essentially, and I have to treat him like the enemy, and that's exactly what I'm going to do on the weekend. And I don't think I'm going to boo him maybe as much as I would boo someone else in this situation, but I'm not going to cheer him at all. The only time I will cheer him is at the end of the game if we've won, or if we're having a good result against them, 2 or 3-0 up in the second half. I want the whole stadium to sing "He's Magic," Pochettino, because I think that would be the biggest and the best shithousery that we can come up with. Like, imagine that, the whole of the ground singing "He's Magic," and Spurs are battering Chelsea 3-0 up.
And Poch has a tear in his eye.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That would be incredible.
That would be great. Yeah, we'll have to wait. Look, you can never plan for what the result's going to be because you don't know what's going to happen.
But you can plan for what would happen if it gets to that stage.
Yeah, that'd be great. I just think like when he comes out, I do think some fans are going to applaud him. So I don't. I like. If I was there, I'm not going to be there, unfortunately. But if I was there, am I not going to join in just out my own sentiment like that? There should be it should be an intense atmosphere. I think you could do both. I think you can show acknowledgement and also make the atmosphere intense at the same time. So I just think the very first time we see him after the sacking, there should be a bit of a nice moment. But other than that, I'm happy for whatever happens to happen.
It just doesn't sit right with me to clap him as he's coming out, because you're supposed to be like going to war at that stage. You're not going to clap the enemy at war. To war. Can't clap the enemy at war. You know what I mean? He's the enemy at the end of the day. He's the manager.
Chelsea are the enemy.
And he's the manager of Chelsea.
Yeah, but and I understand that. Look, and I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just my feeling that I feel like just because it's the first time he's back at Tottenham for all those years, I would like to see a nice moment. That's all.
Well, the poll has got 330 votes. 79% says no to boo Poch, and 21% says yes. So, I mean, I kind of am somewhere in the middle, because it will hurt me a bit to boo him. But I don't know. I just think, like, with a Chelsea manager coming here, whoever it is, you got to show him a bit of vitriol and a bit of, intense atmosphere.
If it was Arsenal, I'll agree with you 100%. I wouldn't even have any doubt about it. But Chelsea, I just don't have the same feeling as you do about Chelsea. I'm not saying I don't hate Chelsea. I do. I don't like Chelsea at all. I just don't. I'm not really that as bothered about them as I am at Arsenal, in my opinion. So
I can't stand Chelsea. I literally cannot stand them. And you know what makes it worse is like the way they hate us. I think that's probably what's ramped it up. Is like they hate us so much. Like we're some sort of like local rival to them, and then we're two steps down the road from them. Like, why do they hate us so much? Why?
Have to ask Chelsea.
They like try and like forge this rivalry with us, and it works. And it works because I bloody hate the guts out and I hate the life out of them. But obviously, Arsenal are always
let the hate flow through you, Ben.
Arsenal are always going to be that level above. But we are Arsenal. We are
Chelsea's.
We are Chelsea's Arsenal, basically.
Yeah,
we are, and like. That's what it comes down to. And like, it must kill them. It must absolutely kill them what Pochettino is saying about us and like kind of what he feels towards us. Because the way they hate us is like the way we hate Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. But that's their feeling, not my feeling.
Yeah. But look, score prediction.
I'm going 1-0 Spurs. I do think it's going to be a close game. I do think Chelsea can cause us trouble with how they play. I do think it's actually fairly well suited to playing against us if they can keep up their intensity. But given their lack of clinical edge in the front line right now, and I do think hopefully we can limit their chances as much as possible. If we can basically make sure that we're not conceding, especially early on, too many chances. I do think once we start to find solutions in the game, if it's still 0-0 at that time, we will be able to put some moves together. I don't think Chelsea's defence is going to be strong enough to keep us at bay completely throughout the 90 minutes. But I do see it still being a very close game. I think Chelsea has a good player, so I'm only going for 1-0. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think Chelsea will be up for this one as well. As much as we've been talking about Poch, I think he'll get his players up for it. He'll know that they want to make a statement in this game. I just don't think it'll be enough. I think it's going to be a tight game. So I'm only going for 1-0.
Yeah, I said 2-0 in Prick the Prem, but I think I'm going to change it to 2-1. I do see Chelsea getting a goal in this game by hook or by crook, one way or another, and that's probably going to come in the first half. But I do see Spurs turning it around or even taking the lead and then going on and winning the game. So I think 2-1. And when you're looking at Chelsea's games this season, their two best performances have probably come in their two hardest games of the season so far this year. Liverpool on the first game, which I thought they were really good, and Arsenal a few weeks ago, which they probably should have won that. Well, they definitely should have won that game 2-0 up into the latter stages of the game, and they just chucked it away really. But I can see a lot more joy for Spurs as the game progresses and in the second half, and then I think we'll get stronger as the game goes on and they'll get weaker, and that will just obviously play into our hands. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Spurs. Sim's going 1-0 to Spurs. Let me know your score prediction in the comment section below, and that is our match